Hey, well, sharers. So I want to share a conversation I was having with my husband today. And we were talking about God and different aspects of like our journey and the things that we go to God with and the things that I felt that we as a human race misunderstand about God. And one of the things I was sharing with my husband is that there's so much about God that I did not know. And we were actually talking about his intuition as a teenager and how him knowing when to stop or go, when to leave a place, when to go somewhere. And I was saying that I had this reflection moment over the past like couple weeks where I remember distinctly writing the words, do unto others as I want done unto myself when I was about 13 years old. And I did not realize that God was speaking to me until like last week, right? Like this is a very new revelation for me. And I was saying to my husband that, I'm so thankful that God has given me the insight that I have today, the wisdom of how God operates in our lives, but there's a part of me that really wish that I would have known this before. But nonetheless, I have an opportunity to teach my children and others what God is allowing me to learn about myself and how God is in my life today. So, one of the things that I brought up to my husband was more of the fact that there is this missing link between what people were taught in churches, what people were taught in their childhood, and what we are learning today overall. Now, they are key people that are teaching these philosophies, but I don't really hear a lot of people talking about God in like one on one conversations and the understanding that God is always with us. And that's what my husband and I were talking about. I shared with him that I did not know that God was always with us. I did not know that God sees through my eyes. I did not know that God hears my thoughts. I did not know that God knows my feelings. I had no clue that it was such an intimate relationship and there is no separation. And that is the one thing that God has taught me over the past 3 years is that God is always with me and he's always watching. And it's not just a me thing, it's you, it's your family, your friends, it's everyone on this earth. Through creation, God has always watched and known and paid attention to our behaviors, but also God and us are one. And the more I say it, the more I experience it, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I knew. But at the end of the day, and I sometimes I pause on the wish I knew because I'm so thankful that God has allowed me to know in the now. And I say to young folks all the time, like those who are 20 who have this knowledge or gaining more knowledge about God in this intimate setting is more of like you guys have so much to do with God at an early stage in your life to know that there is no separation between you and God. And I say that because I was saying to my husband, like, there's so much that God has been guiding us both on, but with me specifically, when it comes to finances, God has been guiding me on finances for so long, like in my 20 years ago, and I didn't realize it was God. And when it comes to investments, even though we invested like in like our mid 20s and continue to invest definitely into like today, if I would have followed on what God was showing me, we would have been so much ahead of where we could have been. Am I saying that right? We could have been so much further along, but I don't get caught up in where we could have been. I'm more focused on the fact that I have the information now and I can do something great with it, right? And that's what God wants us to do. He doesn't want us to like focus on the woulda, shoulda, couldas. It's more like now that you know, what are you going to do? So, one of the things I was saying to my husband that I feel is a miss in church, some churches, and I'm just basing this on my historical viewpoint, that no one told me that we were made in God's image. And I say no one told me, mean like no one's like really explained it, right? Like no one really made it hit home. No one really made it penetrate in the way that I know now. So I pray that the words that I'm saying to you will help you be able to really have a deep understanding into what it means by we're made in God's image. So I'm going to pull up um, the this is going to be the Hebrew Bible with the English translation. Reason why I'm doing this is my first time actually reading a Hebrew translation to English, because my husband was saying something about there's like some differences, but I haven't got to the differences yet. But I was really focusing on the beginning. Myron Golden said something that was really profound, and it's been sticking with me for the past month, but it was also confirmation of what God was telling me. God told me, it's God made the world with his words. Everything in the universe, God used God's words to make. And that is what Myron Golden also said when I watched one of his videos about a month ago. He said the first thing in chapter 1, verse 1 is that God showed us that he was a creator. So, with the knowledge of God giving me the understanding of what that meant in terms of like God's words, God used words, we use words, and then God telling me that we are made in God's image, which means that we have the power to use words to create. That is the one thing that I feel like is missing from the humans' understanding. Because if humans really understood what this meant, they would truly be mindful about their actions, their words, their thoughts. And because they know that there is no separation between God and themselves, they will operate life a whole lot differently. So for me, I try my best to pay attention to the fact that God is watching my every move. And God is literally having this experience with me in this very moment. And that's another thing that I wish we knew, or I knew at a younger age, or regardless of, I know now, so I'm sharing it with you, that God experiences everything with you. Another thing that I wish that, more people knew of is that God is also part of what happens to you, meaning God allows situations to happen, and people do not understand that if they're going through a test, a tribulation, happiness, joy, it is God that is allowing it to happen. Because if we recognize what happened with Job, we know that nothing could have happened to Job without God giving permission to. So going back to, the beginning, it says, chapter 1, verse 1 of Genesis, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then and I'm scrolling down on purpose because I want to get, hit on some key things. Then God said in chapter, um, um, God said in chapter 1, verse 26, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the seas, the fowls of the airs, over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping things that creepeth upon the earth. And then it says in verse 27, chapter 1, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female created he them. And if we can really truly connect with the knowing that us and God are one, and the separation happens in the thought of not knowing that God is always around us and always within us and always experiencing things with us. That's why you can pray to God and God will answer, because God already knows. That's why God can tell you when to pause and not speak quickly, and when to move and fulfill a task, because God already knows what will and what shall be. So in theory, people know this, but they really don't take the time to really absorb it. they don't really take the time to pull it into their reality to where they can walk with the authority of knowing that they're walking with God every day. So, as a wealth sharer, you will see me create videos about finance and about affirmations. But what you will see me talk about is the connection to God and everything that we do. Our mindset connects to God. How we think rolls up to God. Whether it is good or it's bad, God knows. And there is a part that we really need to understand, that there is nothing, and when I say nothing, I mean there is nothing that can bypass God. Not a thought, not a second. So I say this to encourage you to be mindful of how you move, but not just mindful of how you move in, in the negative space and making sure that you're not doing the wrong things, but be mindful of how you move when it comes to creating the things in your life and the choices that you're making. And really what God is reminding me of right now is the reason why my husband and I got into the conversation is because I started planting maybe about 2 weeks ago. When I say planting, I mean like I have very small planter containers, and I put the seeds of peppers, some orange and yellow and red peppers to grow. And God's been prompting me on doing this for years. And then I took the seeds out of a cherry tomato and I planted it. And God has been telling me everything you need is in these seeds. If you take the seeds out of the vegetables that you're using and you grow it, you will always be able to multiply it. And when I was telling my husband that, which is what got us into conversation about creation and the things that I wish that was taught more, and the things that I wish that the world would understand, because there is one God for everyone, not a God for certain people. There is one God, the creator of everything and everyone. Okay. So not a God of just the Jews and just the Muslims and just the Asians. And, like, I don't care who people say that they're praising, there is one creator, whether they recognize it or not. The truth is the truth, and you cannot take the truth away. There is only one creator of this entire world, the heavens and the earth. Okay, so let's just get that out the way. So, because that's how I learned. God is teaching me not to judge others, because God has told me that everyone has a bit of the truth. But with the bit of the pieces that of the truth that we have, we are to go and seek more. We're supposed to go and find out more. And the more is in the biblical laws and the word of God that exist throughout different religions, regardless of, people feeling like it's their God. There's one God. Okay. So when going back to the seeds, I was saying to my husband, if we literally like created our own garden, we would be able to multiply, seeds like more than 100 folds. And I say that because when grow seeds from a plant, multiple fruit bear from it. And within those fruit and vegetables, they have seeds, right? Like we know the cucumber, which people say cucumber is a fruit. Anything that has a seed is a fruit. But I say it to say that there is a way to multiply, okay? Like I cut some scallions, and I planted the scallion roots from the grocery store into dirt, and it started growing just this past Sunday. Like, there is ways that we can multiply, and we won't ever starve if we were actually able to replant the seeds that from the food that we are buying. And at some point, I started feeling guilty about throwing away the seeds, because I was like, God has given us this abundance and we're throwing it away and we're taking it for granted, and we're not realizing how much power and how much life we have in the seeds that we're throwing away, whether it's a pumpkin seed or the cucumber seed, whatever it is that has root or can grow. So many people are throwing it away. I saw a video the other day where a guy literally replanted the top of a pineapple and grew a pineapple. I didn't know that was possible. But my point is that There's so much that we can do, but I'm going to say what it is. Out of laziness and out of the lack of knowledge, we throw things away, not realizing that God has given us all this abundance already, and we're not paying attention. And that's been my thing. God has put me in a position to pay attention. God, back in 20, like over 5 years ago, 7 years ago, God had me to stop watching TV. And that allowed me to start focus. So I want to say, like, going back to the creation part, when God gave us the garden, and I say us because it was given to mankind, right? Like, you can have a garden. There's nothing in this world that can stop someone from replanting seeds. No one. Okay. There's dirt outside. Like, you can go to a park and dig up dirt, right? If somebody can't afford dirt. Like, I'm just saying that there's so much resources out there that's ready available that no one can say that they could not plant. Whether you have an apartment, whether you have a studio, whether you have a house, whether you're using your backyard, your front yard, there is no reason that someone could not use seeds to generate life food, to be able to not have to spend all this money in the grocery store. We can have it in our homes. Right now, I'm growing the plants inside my house because it's about to be winter time, and I realize they can still possibly grow without having the cold. And for me, I'm a you know out of sight, out of mind kind of person. So I wanted to put it where I can see it, because if I put it outside, I might forget about it. So there's reasons why I'm doing it indoors, but you can do it indoors too. But I just really want you all to know that God has given us abundance. Like, that is a pure example of what abundance we have, and we're wasting it. And I told my husband, I was like, I'm in this space where I do not want to operate out of being remorseful. I want to stop apologizing to God for not doing what God is telling me to do. God has been telling me to plant seeds for definitely 4 years. Like, definitely. I remember during COVID, I actually started and then I got away from it. So, and it's not the first time. I actually have like a garden bed in my backyard from years ago. Don't use that. The signs were all there, and the signs have been there for you as well. So there's so much about creation that God has put right under our nose that we're not paying attention to. So I pray that you are able to see what God is doing in your life, and I pray that you'll be able to pay attention, because I'm going to say to you, I don't feel good having to apologize to God for not recognizing that He was telling me to do something and I didn't move on it. One of the things I will say is that what I recognize in my journey, in my conversation with my husband as well, is that there's so many times where God is telling me to do something and I'm not doing it because I think I have more time. And I can't tell you how many times in the past 2 months where God has shown me that I have not responded to his request. And because I thought I was moving on my own time, I end up dealing with consequences. It happened just yesterday. God was prompting me to do something, and I missed out on um, some hundreds of dollars off of like um, a sale that I could have had. And that's on me. I really recognize what I did because, we have to take responsibility for our actions. It can't be anyone else's fault, but our own when it comes to certain things. And that's the point where I've gotten to, where I have learned to take responsibility for the lack of creation that God has given me the ability to be able to bring to fruition. So I pray that these words will speak to you in ways that will be able to help you move more efficiently in your life, and to understand that there is no separation between you and God. And there's no separation between you, God, and anyone. And God sees everything. That's why you can move in protection. That's why you can move with guidance. That is why you can be shielded and blocked from things that you don't even know that's going to happen to you. So there's so many times God is guiding you because you are made in his image, and God loves you so much because you are his creation, that he's guiding you in a way where you don't have to deal with consequences. And as much as I don't always want to admit it to people, or I guess I'm learning to admit that we are the cause of our own delays. And I don't want that for you. And I definitely don't want it for myself, because I recognize that when I delay, I'm impacting the generational wealth and the wisdom, wasting the wisdom that God has given me. So I pray that God allows you to see more into what I'm saying for your own particular situation, and where you have wasted God's wisdom, and where you have been operating out of consequence because you're not moving on what God is saying. But also, I pray that you also will be able to see where God has given you the abundance and the ability to be prosperous in your life. So you can see the correlation to when you listen and when you don't. So just know that there is no separation. God is always with you. God is so loving that he gives us opportunities to get it right. And even when we think we're short on time, we're often not when we listen. Okay? So don't waste God's time. Don't waste God's wisdom. And know that God created you in his image, which means that you have more power than you realize. We'll talk soon. See you in the next video. Bye.